Okay, Running a Fever, episode 384, the back knack. I don't know why I call it that, it just rhymes. Welcome to Running a Fever. My name is Michael Davis. This is a podcast about fitness, diet, and medicine. My goal is to live a long, healthy, happy, active life right up to the very end. And I'll do it by loving my life as enough to make it last as long as possible. So, if any of that sounds good to you, then you're probably in the right place. As you can see, I think it might be out of frame, but I am on the stationary bike, the Schwinn stationary bike that I have in my undetermined room of my house. It's just kind of a room. It's not really a living room. It's just a room, weird room. And one of the great things about the exercising on the stationary bike is that it's good for my back. You know, I don't strain my back because I'm not putting weight on it. So I can exercise pain-free if I have a back problem, which I have had, which is the subject of this episode. So, first of all, back problems are not new to me. I've had my share for sure. I know that, at least a few weeks ago, actually going back to episode 53, that was when I started having pain in my arm, pain in my back, and I went to a neurosurgeon, and basically that's when my Forestier's was diagnosed. But episode 53 was when I just started that process and gone to the doctor for the first time. And recently, in the past few months, I guess, when I have gone out on the Lake Fayetteville Trail, as I've been hundreds of times, I would go out, and then when I was about halfway through, my back would start hurting, and I would have to rest sometimes periodically, or sometimes I would make it all the way through. But I was in some back pain there. And that was soreness, and I thought it was just all muscular, and it was because I was overweight and out of shape, and I just needed to, keep on exercising through that. So, fast forward to about, 5 weeks ago, something like that. I was cutting the grass, and it was really hard. I mean, it had been hurting my back, but this was particularly bad. And I finished, and I felt almost crippled, really, after that. So after a couple of weeks, I figured out, well, this isn't going to work itself out, and it's pretty bad. So I need to go to the doctor, and I did. That time, I would rate the pain as a 9 on my 1 to 10 scale. They say the 0 is no pain at all. 10 is the worst pain you've ever felt in your life. And I rated it a 9, possibly a 10. It was pretty bad. And what happened was I couldn't stand up for more than a few minutes without having excruciating pain. And so doing things like, making dinner, something like that. Certainly walking was out of the question. Walking wasn't as bad as standing, but it still, it was very painful. And so walking for any length of time would have been out of the question at that point as well. So fortunately, what they did before I even got to the doctor, they ordered x-rays. And so I was at the VA for several hours that day. I got the x-rays, and then I went to the doctor, and fortunately the x-rays got processed through and evaluated before I got to the doctor's appointment, which is amazing considering this is the VA, this is US government, right? And they were able to do it that fast. So I feel very fortunate. And so I got in to see the nurse and clinical nurse, practitioner. So, you know, we talked about a few things. I'd actually been into the VA to see her only like 8 or 10 days before for like a coughing thing that I had for, I don't know, 4 weeks or something like that. And getting some help for that. And then I finally decided to come in for my back. So, you know, I told her about the pain. She did give me some medication for the pain. It wasn't narcotic, fortunately. It was a muscle relaxer and some a steroid and some topical treatments that sort of worked a little bit. Didn't really take much off the serious pain that I was having. But they did help a little bit. And then we got the report. And I've got the report right here in my hands. So here are the findings of the radiologist who read the x-ray. 5 U's lumbar spine, bilateral pars defects L4 with grade 1 anterior spondylolisthesis L4 to L5, lumbar vertebrae otherwise well, and vertebral body heights well maintained, end plate osteophytes of varying sizes throughout, at least moderate disc space narrowing L4 to L5, mild disc space narrowing remaining levels, multi-level degenerative changes, bilateral articulating facets, bilateral SI joint and multi-level spinous process degeneration. And then the impression, which is a further summary, says bilateral pars defects L4 with grade 1 anterior spondylolisthesis L4 to L5, at least moderate degenerative disc disease L4 to L5, mild appearing multi-level degenerative changes remaining levels. So some of that sounds pretty scary. Probably it's mostly incomprehensible to anyone other than a neurosurgeon or, you know, perhaps a physician or clinical nurse in my case. So I looked up some of these things to sort of try to figure it out myself. So a pars defect, and it said bilateral pars defects with grade 1 anterior spondylolisthesis. Getting better at that word. Pars defect is a fracture in the pars interarticularis, which is the bone that connects the vertebrae. So that seems pretty important. That bone that connects the vertebrae, if there's a defect in that, that's pretty serious, I would think, because everything about the back is serious, but it's not just like a chip off a vertebrae. It's the bone that actually connects them. And so that's a fracture. One of the good things is a fracture, it seems like to me, fractures can be healed. So that sounds sort of good in the midst of the badness. Osteophytes, end plate osteophytes of varying sizes throughout. Osteophytes are just bone spurs. So I've got bone spurs in my back. Spinous process, bilateral SI joint and multi-level spinous process degeneration. Spinous process is the bone on the back of each vertebra that connects to muscles and ligaments. So that's degeneration of that is not good, because it means it will be difficult to connect to muscles and ligaments, which is, of course, very important. Spondylolisthesis, that big long word I've been trying to pronounce. That happens when a vertebra slips out of place with the vertebra below it. So that, I'm guessing that is the main cause of the pain, because to me, when you have vertebra out of alignment like that, it seems like that there's a possibility of pinching the spinal cord. And that would be very painful. I know I've had a shot, a needle stick in my spinal cord, and that was very painful for a brief, very brief period of time. So I've got that in my L4 and L5. So it's just in one place. The question is, so the nurse sent me to get an MRI, which, if you've never had an MRI, it's interesting. It's not terribly bad, but there's a lot of noise. And for a guy my size, it was a very tight squeeze in there. They roll you into this thing that's got a big thing around it. It's all machinery and magnetic stuff. Magnetic resonance something. MRI. Anyway, I had one of those, and it got read, I got presumably by the nurse again, who recommended and referred me to a neurosurgeon, which is outside the VA too, and you know, the VA does pay for things outside of the VA medical system. They didn't have a neurosurgeon at the VA here, and I'm at a regional VA center, but they still didn't have a neurosurgeon. And they had an MRI machine, but it was going to take 6 weeks to get in there. And when I had the MRI at the hospital, they did it at 7:30 p.m., which leads me to believe that they're pretty busy as well. So anyway, I'm going to the neurosurgeon. I'm going to have, of course, 2 main questions for him. 1, what is the treatment? And 2, what was the cause? Because I'm thinking the cause is me being overweight and or sitting at a computer for 30 years, hunched over with bad posture. So I don't know that it's connected to my Forestier's disease or not. You know, we'll see. But I want to know the cause. And the treatments are surgery, and it's not just one surgical procedure. There are several different types of surgery that you can have. Obviously, I want to avoid surgery if at all possible because of the risk involved. I did have someone anecdotally just kind of tell me they had back problems, lots of back pain, had surgery, and it completely went away. And so they, you know, said it was the best thing they ever did. So there is that. Surgery can help. I think where I looked up treatments, it said that probably 15% of people with this this malady have to have surgery, and the non-surgical procedures did not work. The conservative treatments, what they call them. And the list of them goes like this. NSAIDs, which are non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, heat, light exercise, which I guess this would qualify for, traction, which I'm familiar with, bracing, and bed rest. So some of these, I can do. I believe ibuprofen is an anti-inflammatory that I can take. I have a heating pad. I can do that. I'm doing light exercise. And I can sleep and get enough sleep, a healthy amount of sleep. That may not be the kind of bed rest that they're talking about, but it might help. So I can be sure that I get a good amount of sleep at night. So next thing is to talk to the neurosurgeon, and we'll see what happens there. I wish I could tell you something to do to avoid this, and hopefully I will have that information after I see the neurosurgeon. But hopefully this is something that will help you if you do have back pain or someone has some severe back pain. Go and see a medical professional, because it might be something serious. It might not require surgery, but if you're in pain, it looks like at least that there are some ways to relieve that without resorting to narcotics. So far, I have not had to have any narcotics. Let me just tell you one thing that's kind of startling to me. I was in serious pain to where I couldn't stand up for more than a few minutes, and I would be in excruciating pain and couldn't walk very far. I would have to sit down. And then 2 weeks ago on a Sunday, today is a Sunday, it's a Sunday, September 15th, 2024, and 2 weeks ago on a Sunday, my pain stopped. And honestly, I think it's a God thing. I really do. Because it didn't go away gradually. It was suddenly, although I don't think I realized that for a couple of days. But I had my MRI later, and the MRI showed that there is still damage. So I haven't been completely healed, but the pain has gone away. So I'm grateful for that. So anyway, I hope this was helpful to you, or at least interesting. And remember, if you got the fever, keep it burning. And if you don't, catch the fever. And I will talk to you next time on Running a Fever.